How ridiculous is that? I'm moving my mouse around trying to start the video camera. My phone, actually. Anyhow, welcome to Tibalts Apprentice. It's been far too long since I've had a chance to talk to you guys. It's also been a long time since I've bought a commander deck with the express purpose of stripping it down to its parts. Wow. First time I did that was back when, I don't even remember what the deck was. It had Spike Feeder in it though. And I saw that Spike Feeder at that time was going for about 60 bucks. And I determined that I was going to get back into selling Magic cards then, you know, on the secondary market. That market that doesn't exist anymore. Anyhow, yeah, so it's been a while since I bought one just for the express purpose of ripping it apart. But this deck, this right here, can you see it? It is freaking awesome. I like it. It's I'm a big fan of the deck, but if you watch this channel at all, you know I'm a huge fan of my Ghoulcaller Gisa deck. And while that is a straight black deck, there are plenty of new cards, some lords, and some things that are going to make worth stripping this down. I'm going to go ahead, pull those cards out, and figure out which ones I'm going to strip out. And I'll be back in a second to tell you what I decided to do. So in an effort to keep this on point, I stripped out, obviously, all the blue cards. But I also took out any demons, rogues, or any other creatures that weren't zombies. Again, the idea is to keep this on point. It's definitely a zombie deck. The most important thing, though, is I don't want to ruin the deck that already works really well. If you've watched this channel for any length of time, you know that this was one of the first decks that I came up with, or rather, correct that. The first deck that I found from budget MTG decks to be able to compete with, well, to compete with any decks. Some of the most competitive players that I play with in my play group, and just in general. So I don't want to mess up the integrity of the deck as it already works. So I think I have the extra task then of removing any cards that are duplicates, and then only limiting myself to cards that are less expensive unless they have a way, way high upside. So that's the next part we're going through here. Normally when I sit down to upgrade, change, or do anything with a deck, the first thing I look at is the lands. The tapped lands specifically. With my Ghoulcaller Gisa deck, I don't have that many tapped lands. It's a monocolored deck. The only two that I even thought about putting on here, or in this deck, are these two. The Mortuary Mire and the Myriad Landscape. Well, since it's monocolored, the Myriad Landscape doesn't really make sense. And the Mortuary Mire, well, I've got other cards that are better at getting cards back into my hand or back onto the battlefield. So I'm going to skip those for now. Next thing I want to look at, though, are the artifacts that could potentially go in here. So after looking at the artifacts that I have in this deck, Crowded Crypt was the only card that was potentially going into it. And I'm actually swapping it out for a Whip of Erebos. I think I feel good about it from the standpoint that this doesn't come up that often. Much as I love the idea of giving all of my creatures lifelink and such, 4 mana to get it out, 4 mana to use its ability. It's not overly pricey, not in a monocolored deck, but it also doesn't happen fast enough. With this deck, I need to take advantage of the fact that I can swarm the board with lots of zombies. The fact that I can also get mana off of this, I think means it's going in the deck. Write in the comments below if you think I'm wrong on that one. Actually, write in the comments if you think I'm wrong on any of these things. Okay, because I love this deck so much, I know it's going to be hard for me to figure out what to cut. So, keeping on point with what I said about this original deck, I'm trying to keep this zombie. So the first thing I did was go through and decide what cards I was going to potentially pull out of my Ghoulcaller Gisa deck. Mordagoyf, not powerful enough. I mean, it's a good card. It's a great card. But it doesn't do... It's not a zombie, and it's not on point. I realize that it takes all the cards in all the graveyards, so it can get potentially big. That's generally not how I'm winning the game, though. That built-in regenerate on it, awesome. But again, just not big enough. Filth, on the other hand, well, if you've seen my channel at all, you know I love the incarnations, and I love the fact that if you get them in the graveyard, they give you great effects. So I'm going to have to keep that one, and even though it's technically not a zombie. Magnus of the Coffers. Okay, not a zombie. So that doubling up the mana, though, mana pool for 2 mana, 2 colorless mana, to add a black mana for each swamp you control, it's just too good to get rid of. Gisa, Glorious Resurrector, another new card that I just put in a couple weeks ago. Haven't really got a chance to play with it yet, but I just feel like the ability to get rid of other people's creatures, send them into exile, makes it worth keeping her in there. Squelching Leeches, I think I can probably get rid of. Overseer of the Damned, I can probably get rid of. Wall of Blood, well, if you know anything about this deck, you know that Wall of Blood is a key card. Or it can be clutch in certain situations, so that's not getting anywhere. There's 3 cards that I've made space for. Let's see how many more I can get rid of from other slots. Okay, so I found 9... Slow down, camera. There we go. So I found 9 creatures to take out. That means 9 creatures are going in. And with, well, let's see, 5 of them being zombie lords of some type. I think I've upgraded the power of this deck just a bit. We'll see. And we'll go over exactly which cards they are in just a minute. So in an attempt to trade like for like, as to not disturb the efficacy of this deck, I think I'm actually pulling out the Grave Betrayal. It's a 5 mana cost, and it gets creatures back, other people's creatures back onto the board. But I actually think I'm going to go for Endless Ranks of the Dead instead. I want speed. I want it to be faster, deadly, and more efficient. This tends to be a target of enchantment removal if it hits the board, of course. So Endless Ranks of the Dead, I think, is going to be more of a nuisance, but less likely to be targeted by direct removal. We'll see what happens. So for these last 3, I might be sending myself backwards. I'm hoping I've gained enough momentum with the other cards that I've put up here to be able to pull this off. I'm pulling out Victimize and Cabal Therapy. Cabal Therapy was really just to get a peek at, well, it was at a peek to get a peek at Enrique's hand to help him get rid of Nicol Bolas. But that's too kitschy. That's too much of a niche scenario. And Victimize. But what's going in place of these 2 is Army of the Damned and Zombie Apocalypse. I'm hoping to not see these, obviously, until the end game. And I'm hoping it'll push things in my favor if I need to. I realize I'm getting out a 1 casting cost and a 3 casting cost thing for a 6 and an 8 casting cost. But it feels like it's worth the trade. I don't know. Same thing with this one. It's a 5 casting cost Siphon Flesh, but I'm replacing it with Liliana. You know how I feel about Planeswalkers, but if you're going to play one, which I am, Liliana's the one for me.